It's been nearly 2 months now since the Taliban completed their takeover of Afghanistan. And today, the United Nations warned that the country's economy is on the brink of collapse. The World Food Programme has also warned that the humanitarian crisis there has escalated at, and I quote, an incredible pace. Well, now there's growing concern about the spectre of a widening conflict in Afghanistan. Earlier today, the Taliban arrested 4 members of the Islamic State group following a raid in Pagman district, which is just north of Kabul. Well, in a separate development, 2 Taliban fighters were shot and killed in the eastern city of Jalalabad. Well, this particular region of Afghanistan has emerged as a flashpoint in the rivalry between the Taliban and the Islamic State group's local affiliate, which is known as ISIS-K. Well, let's get some more analysis on all of these relationships and dynamics. I'm joined here in the studio by France 24's expert on jihadist groups, Wassim Nasr. Wassim, let's talk about, first of all, the relationship between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Is the Taliban honouring the commitments that it made with regards to containing Al-Qaeda?
Well, actually, if we are talking about what they committed to prevent Al-Qaeda from preparing attacks in the West, the answer is yes. But we have to know that today Al-Qaeda doesn't have the ability or the means to conduct another 9/11. So, okay, they committed to prevent them from doing this, but at the same time, they fought hand in hand with them against the Afghan government. They have family ties, they have tribal ties, they are together since decades. So Al-Qaeda and the Taliban work hand in hand. But the Taliban sold to the Americans something that isn't in the ability of Al-Qaeda. We prevent them from committing attacks in the West. And if you look back, even 9/11 was mostly prepared in the West, in Europe and in the United States. So this is something that is agreed upon between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, knowing that all Al-Qaeda affiliates and Al-Qaeda Central have an allegiance to the Taliban. The latest affiliate was created in 2017 in the Sahel region in Africa. They vowed allegiance with the image, with what they said to the Taliban. So this is like business as usual for them.
Now, there's another dynamic, of course, the Islamic State group's affiliate in Afghanistan. And clearly there's growing an escalating tension between the Taliban and ISIS.
Of course, it's an ongoing war since 2015. It was a bit under the radars because Afghanistan as a country wasn't attracting much attention at the time. It went back to the front page, if I may say so, with the attack on the airport in Kabul, the suicide attack on the airport in Kabul. But the war is ongoing since 2015. And if we see, we have a graph that shows us at least the attacks from the beginning of 2021. And here it is, and we saw a peak just before the takeover of Kabul, and then almost 10 days of calm, and then a peak again in the attacks against the Taliban. So the Islamic State never stopped attacking the Taliban, even when they were trying to take over the country. But at the time, a few years back, the Taliban succeeded in taking the territory of the Islamic State on the border with Pakistan because we had American effort on one hand, because we had the Afghan army on the other hand, plus the Taliban. So they were contained. The jihadis, the Islamic State jihadis were contained. But today we know that they have the ability to strike anywhere where they have elements, like even in Kabul. We have the image of 2 suicide attackers. Here we see on the picture of Kabul. And what's particular about those 2 attackers, so of the airport, and the other one attacked the funeral of the mother of the spokes of the Taliban, Zabihullah Mujahid, very known face today of the Taliban. And what's particular about those 2 suicide attackers, that they carried the same gun. And they carried the same gun, meaning that they came from outside Kabul, one from Logar and one from Kunar, but they have a spot where to meet, a spot where to have explosive and then attack. And this spot is still active. So they still have the capacity to accept suicide attackers from outside Kabul and to hit the Taliban inside Kabul, as the Taliban used to do with government forces, to show that they are unable to secure the town. And we have another footage where we see it here in Jalalabad. It's an IED, an improvised explosive device that hit the Taliban. So they are the same modus operandi that was used by the Taliban against Afghan forces and against Western forces. So the Islamic State today is showing that it has the ability to attack the Taliban as the Taliban did before. And even though the Taliban as an insurgency, they are much stronger than the Islamic State, but today we're talking about counterterrorism. even if they succeeded in flying Black Hawk helicopters and Mi-35 helicopters, the Taliban did in the last days, but doing counterterrorism is something else, especially without the input of intelligence, the input that the Americans used to give to Afghan government at the time.
Okay, so clearly Afghanistan is the forum, the theatre for these complicated relationships to play out. And there's another one, because of course Afghanistan shares an important land border with Pakistan. There's another important relationship.
There's another important point that nobody's talking about, actually. Everybody's talking about the concerns of China regarding the Uyghur, the concerns of Iran regarding the Hazara, the Shia minority in Afghanistan, the concerns of Russia regarding former Soviet republics, the concerns of Americans and the West regarding the Islamic State, but nobody's talking about the Pakistani Taliban. And this is a very important point, because the Pakistani Taliban are at war with Islamabad, with the Pakistani government. We are talking about daily attacks on daily basis against the army. A few days ago, Jalalabad admitted that it was negotiating with the Pakistani Taliban. They even offered an amnesty, which the Pakistani Taliban refused. And they even got to unite many factions in Waziristan under one banner in order to wage this war against the Pakistani government. And even Jalalabad sent emissaries to Kabul to talk to the Afghani Taliban and ask them to help them to contain the Pakistani Taliban. So this is very particular. This is a very important issue, because at the same time, the Taliban in Afghanistan need the Taliban in Pakistan in order to fight the Islamic State. Because we have to know that the Islamic State succeeded in having a territory in Nangarhar on the border of Pakistan with the help of some of the Pakistani Taliban. So it's a very complicated issue today, and I guess it's the most defying for the Taliban in Afghanistan in order to prove that they are able to govern. Because taking over the country militarily is one thing, and governing is another. We are talking about them. How are they going to govern? Is there going to be women in the government? How much inclusive would it be? But also in their own ranks, they are looking at this governance. And if they go too soft from their ranks, they could join the Taliban in Pakistan or the Islamic State, and the other way around. So it is an unfolding story, and governance is the biggest defiance today.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that.
Thank you.
Expert on jihadist groups, Wassim Nasr, thank you very much.